Welcome to Elite Men Podcast today. I'm coming at you with my homeboy Marcus Wilson. We're going to talk a little bit about his marriage and some of the things that he dealt with in his marriage. This is a good topic because this is going to explain a little bit about how when your marriage is going perfect and then it gets flipped upside down, you have to learn how to deal with that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with challenging marriages, and I'm going to let my man tell a little bit about himself and what he went through. And he also got a clothing line called Unwavering, which I'm supporting this shirt, you know what I'm saying? And he's got a website, unwavering.com.
Unwaveringclothing.com.
Unwaveringclothing.com if you want to support him. But tell people a little bit about yourself, Marcus, before we dive into your story.
First, I appreciate you for even allowing me to come and the invite. Anything you get a chance to be on anything called Elite Men Podcast, you know it's something big, so definitely appreciate you for even reaching out to even want to do this in the first place. So first off for that. But yeah, my name is Marcus Wilson. I'm originally from the East Coast, born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is about an hour and a half away from New York City. But I've lived in 7 different states: New York, New Jersey, the DC area with Maryland and Virginia, and then moved down to Texas at a younger age, and then also went to school in Oklahoma for about a year. But been married for 12 years now to my wife. We've been together since the age of 19, so been together a total of 15 years. Married since 2010. We got 2 boys, Amari, who's 8 years old. He just turned 8 on Friday. And then Amir, who's 4 years old. He'll be 5 next Friday on December the 9th. And, it's been a blessing. Worked full-time at Mercedes-Benz. Got the clothing line, like you said, on the side that we launched back in 2020. And it really has to do with the overall message of what we'll deep dive into about my marriage and really a lot that I've been through, not only myself, but my wife and others around us too. So happy to get into it.
All right, man. Thanks for sharing about that, man. This is going to be a deep topic, man, because my man Marcus went through where his wife lost her memory. And most people that's married, we deal with marriage issues from not getting along, finances, or even sex. We deal with those type of issues. But very rare do we deal with health issues from another spouse. And at a young age having to deal with that and even knowing what to do with it. So my man's going to explain a little bit about his story on what happened to his wife, what happened, what helped him get through his marriage, because sometimes if you don't have a good support system, a good men's group around you, just good family members that want to help you succeed when something like that happens to a spouse, it get difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and let my man chime in on the story about his wife. Go ahead, Marcus. What
Absolutely. So, like I said, got married in 2010 and was only 24 years old or actually 22 years old when I got married. 2 years later, in 2012, my wife and I were at the house. She was getting ready for work. This is at nighttime, and she felt a little dizzy. Asked her what was wrong. She said she felt a little dizzy, a little woozy. She had just got a ear infection about 2 weeks prior to that, and then just had her sit down on the bed, and I turned around for literally 5 to 10 seconds. Turned around as she was sitting on the bed relaxing, and I just heard her hit the floor and everything like that. Turned around, saw her hit the floor, rushed over to her, tried to get her to wake up, could not get her to wake up. She was unconscious for a good 2 to 3 minutes. So after that, pick up the phone, call 911. About 8 paramedics came once I explained the situation that's going on. So 8 of them showed up. They asked if she had woken up the whole time.
Right.
I told them no. They finally got her to wake up a couple minutes later, but she wasn't talking at that time. So I knew something was immediately wrong.
Right, okay.
And then they asked her, do you know who he is, talking about me? And since she could have talked, she just shook her head no like this. So at that point, I was like, all right, something's going on. Hopefully they can take it to the hospital, figure out what's going on and everything like that. So they strapped it to the bed, got her in the ambulance, took it to the hospital. They ran a whole bunch of tests on her with CAT scans and everything like that. And when the test results came back, they found a scar on the left side of her brain from a concussion that she had back in 2006.
Okay.
Now, I said we've been together for 15 years, since the age of 19. That was in 2007. Her concussion happened in 2006, where she used to be a dancer.
Okay.
She do hip hop, ballet, contemporary dance, and all that type of stuff.
Okay.
So one day she's just out in the street with her dance partner. He dips her down on the street, but loses control, and her head, her back of her head hits the concrete. So at this time, she's rushed to the hospital. Same thing happened. She lost her memory, forgot how to walk, forgot how to talk. She went through about a full recovery process before we even met.
Okay.
So by the time I met her, you can't tell anything was wrong or anything like that. Doctor said she made a full recovery. You think everything's fine. So fast forward back to the story, 2012, when this happened, they run that CAT scan. They see a scar on the left side of her brain because they had the medical records and everything like that.
Right.
It never healed properly from that 2006 concussion. Now, this time when she collapsed, her memory went back to 2006 and before. So that's the reason why she didn't remember meeting me. She didn't remember getting married. She didn't remember my family, friends, anything of that nature.
So after this, she didn't remember anything. She didn't even know who you were. You were a complete stranger during that period of time. Wow.
Her mom came into the hospital room. She knew who her mom was because her memory went back to 2006 before. She's known her mom her whole life, of course.
Right.
And her mom had to tell her, that's your husband. Now, when she started speaking, it was like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old.
Okay.
That's the way it sounded. She was like, that's my husband?
Right.
That's how she was speaking. Like, it literally took her a good minute just to count to the number 10. That's how slow the speech was and everything like that. So, visually seeing that, and also hearing that with your wife, and then her not remembering who you are. And I was 24 years old at this time. This is only 2 years into our marriage.
Right.
Everything was going great. In my mind, I was like, I didn't sign up for this.
Right. I'm about to say, how you feel doing that,
Yeah.
when that process, when she didn't know who you was, man? How did you feel that moment?
So, honestly, I've always been a person that's cool, calm, collected, laid back. I get that from my father. He's always been that way. He has the same mentality. So, when she collapsed at the house, like, I didn't panic.
Right.
I just ran over to her, tried different things to get her to wake up, call 911, explain the story in a soft tone voice, just like I'm talking right now.
Right.
Wasn't screaming, panicking, anything like that. And then seeing her in the hospital and hearing the physical speech and, you know, seeing her kind of days off, not comprehending stuff, not knowing who I was, anything like that, that hurt me inside, but I knew I had to be strong in that moment externally for her and not show that. So I would honestly go to the bathroom and stuff and cry.
Okay.
Because I was like, I literally just lost my wife, my best friend, everything. It was kind of like the movie 50 First Dates or the movie
That's a
The
good
Vow.
one. You're right.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's how I felt. Like it ripped me up inside, not knowing how to deal with it at that time. Wasn't really in the church at that time. Believed in God, but didn't really have a spiritual side to me. Wasn't going on a consistent basis. It was more so, hey, let's just go to church on a Sunday and stuff like that. So I wasn't having a prayer life. I wasn't having a relationship with God at that point in time in my life. And that's one of the biggest things that helped me push towards that. Because anything you go through, God puts us through so many tests in life.
Right.
That's how we have a testimony to give at the end of the day. So it was really gut-wrenching for me, not knowing how to deal with it. And probably today, looking back, I can say I was probably in a depressed state.
Right.
For probably a good year to 2 years.
Did you want to bail, man, when you was in the process? Because it may look like it was hard, or did you you had the dedication and you like, I'm in it no matter how long the situation take?
I've always had the mentality of I'm not getting divorced. I had a good foundation from my grandparents, not my parents. They got divorced at a young age.
Okay.
But even that example, they've always had a civil relationship. We've never done, even to this day, we've never done holidays separately,
Okay.
Thanksgiving, anything like that. But my grandparents had the old school marriages,
Right.
50 plus years, 60 plus years. That old school mentality of how to take care of your woman and everything, take care of the household. So I had that as a foundation growing up around my grandparents at a young age back on the East Coast.
Okay.
And then even with moving to Texas, they would always come down, or my mom's side was in Kansas City at that point in time, so going over there as well too. So I had that foundation. But yes, the flesh inside of me was like, this is not what I
You ain't
signed
signed
up
up for
for.
this as a young man, right?
I'm 24 years old. We don't even have kids yet. It's only 2 years into our marriage. I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Right.
And I thought we were going to be traveling the world, moving up in the corporate ladder, making more money,
Right.
getting the house that we want, the cars we want, and everything like that. And then it's like, all right, 2 years in, now you got a wife that can't even remember who you are,
Right.
can't talk, can't walk, can't anything. So yeah, definitely one of the data points.
So how long was the process for her to start to get her memory back, or did she get? How did that operate?
As far as the memory, that's
Right.
still a process today.
Still a process today.
As far as walking and talking, got her in physical therapy, got her in speech therapy. That took a good 6 to 8 months, I would say.
Okay.
But mind you, throughout this whole time in 2012, even when she got out of the hospital, she started having seizures on a regular basis. It wasn't the convulsing at the mouth and all that type of stuff. It was more so the kind where you daze off, kind of looks like a person staring off. But then she started twitching and everything like that. So
Okay.
you would know she's having a seizure. So then had to go get it looked at for that. And then doctors came back and diagnosed with epilepsy, which is what a lot of athletes deal with, especially football players with all the concussions.
Right.
That stems back to her 2006 concussion. And then also when she collapsed on her house, they believe that she hit her head again, which caused a lot of this to revert back to everything that had happened prior. So physical therapy, probably about a good 6 to 8 months. And I also want to say her body was like jello, like spaghetti when everything first happened.
What you mean by that?
When I say that she couldn't walk and talk and all that stuff, she literally could not walk. So I had to stand up and hold her. I had to stand up and pick her up. I had to bathe her in the shower. I had to do her hair. I had to feed her. I had to give her something to drink through a straw. I had to clothe her. Literally every single thing she could not do for herself because her body was like spaghetti at that point in time. It was just limp.
So that's a true statement when somebody say for better or for worse, right?
Absolutely.
And yours happened in the beginning of your marriage where, you know, you still in the honeymoon stage, and then your worst came in the beginning. So most people don't really deal with the worst. You gradually get into the worst doing years of arguing and just having a poor marriage. You know what I'm saying? Something like, I mean, I didn't deal with anything like that. I just dealt with from the aspect of a wife just not really knowing each other and just having a jacked up perspective.
Right.
Especially growing up in the community I grew up in, there was no marriages, so you don't really know how to stand strong or stand firm because you don't see. And you had the grandparents, right? But the grandparents were considered an older legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't consider like that exists in today's time. So what you dealt with, man, that's great, man. So I know you told me one time you was in the kitchen and things started coming back to her, I believe. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when she first lost her memory and then she started talking again, and just to wrap up that last piece, the speech part took about 6 to 8 months to come back to. When I say she was taking about 10, counting to 10, it took about a minute. That gradually progressed, and in about 8 months, her voice started coming back to normal. So she would start to tell me during that time, everything, she can see images on her head, but it was like a puzzle to where she didn't know what part of the timeline that stuff went in.
Right.
She can see that we went places somewhere. She can see that we had a date night somewhere. She can see that we went to an event somewhere. And even when we drove around the city, something that may have been a place that we used to go to all the time, it used to trigger in her mind.
Okay.
So in the kitchen one day, she was telling us, she was asking me, you know, did we go to so-and-so place? I was like, yeah. And she was asking me about stuff that was on TV, stuff that she would turn to stuff, and not even knowing that she was turning back to stuff that she used to watch before she collapsed, but she didn't know that she liked it. She's asking me a lot of stuff about what she liked, not knowing that she actually used to do that stuff and actually liked it herself. So it was kind of like a retraining of her mind.
Okay.
And for me, it was getting to know a person that you already knew everything about.
Right.
For her, it was getting to know basically a brand new person.
Right.
So I had to date my wife all over again, even though I already knew everything about her. I had to go through that process for her.
What about the hugs, the affectionate side, man? Did it feel weird for her because she only knew you by what her mom told her? So that's like, you know, a whole stranger you're living with, and you really don't know this person, but you have to be able to trust that this is the person. Did that seem awkward to you or her?
For me, definitely yes, because of the speech part.
Right.
Like
okay.
her sounding like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and then you want to get intimate with your wife.
Right.
Felt like I would be taking advantage of a little
Right.
kid.
Right.
If you just saw how she was acting and
Right.
see how she was sounding. So from that piece, the first 6 months, we were barely physical at all.
Oh, okay.
Now, for her standpoint, she's trying to gain trust from me.
Right.
all over
Right.
again,
Right.
and she's trying to get to know who I even am again. So from her perspective, she kind of didn't want to get physical or anything like that either, because she's like, all right, I believe that he's my husband, but I also need to see for myself.
Right. Right.
And then for me, I was like, I know everything about her. I'm like hearing her talk and seeing how she was acting. It was like it was like a little baby,
Right.
like
Right.
a little kid. So I was like, it
So,
don't even feel right.
I was just about to say it had to feel difficult, man, to even get into the groove of that, man. You know, I just imagine when me and my wife not on good terms, right? And you know, it's even hard for me to communicate with her. And so to communicate with somebody that say they don't even know me, you know, I feel like I'm violating her because
Yeah.
you don't really know me. You know, I'm like a stranger. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That you're taking a risk with. You know. So I understand that, man. So what's some of the things that you had in your life, or people you had in your life, to help you transition to that? Did you find a relationship with God closer during that period of time, man, when you were going through that?
Yeah, my family and her family both played a big role. My mom lives in DFW. My dad lives in DFW. My brother lives in DFW. The rest of my family is still on the East Coast or in Kansas City. And then my wife, she's got a big family. She's from Chicago like you.
Okay.
But her mom and then her aunt, she passed away last year though. Her aunt and her uncle moved down to Texas. So they've been down here ever since too. So had them. So they were constantly coming over, making food for us, making sure we had everything we needed to take care of at the house because she couldn't work during this time.
Okay.
It was only me, and I was in Mercedes-Benz, but I wasn't in the position I'm in now.
Okay.
I was working in collections as a phone agent, making
Right.
like $30,000 a year,
Right.
and then you lose another income. I'm like, what do we do now?
Just trying to make it, huh?
But that also elevated my work ethic, which I always had, but it made it even stronger.
Okay.
And then just my advice from my mom, my dad, my brother, encouragement. My mom is very spiritual. My brother wasn't as big at that time as he is now. I would say we're on the same level with our
Right.
spirituality. But my mom is big on keeping scriptures around, big on encouragement. Her mom is the same way. Her aunt was the same way before she passed. Her aunt gave a lot of good advice throughout that time. Now, one thing also with the family is they said if you need to get out because if you feel like you're locked up, let us know. We'll come over and watch you.
Right.
And you can go hang out with your friends and all that type of stuff. Does not feel like you're shacked up in the house
Right.
100% of the time. Now, I took advantage of that. And that's where infidelity crept in. Because communication was one of the biggest keys throughout all this process.
Right.
Her learning how to talk again, and then the memory piece. When I say I was in a depressed state of mind and everything like that, not knowing if your wife is ever going to remember who you are,
Right.
and then taking the time out day in and day out to try to get to know someone again all over again, even though you've already felt like you put in that work,
My Angie.
and then hearing how she was sounding and stuff like that, that on one point it was like, yeah, God, I need you. Can you
Right.
step in the situation? And then at other point, my flesh side was like, I need to go fulfill my own needs.
Right. That's what
And in 2013, a year after this happened, met a girl at work, a Mercedes-Benz. Of course, saying all the right things,
Right.
giving me the attention that I wanted, that I needed. And I just fed directly into it at that time. Not caring about how it made my wife feel, not caring about how it would make me look,
Right.
how my family and friends would think of me. I was literally just thinking about myself because of the depressed state of mind.
So you think you try to numb the pain in the process?
Yes, to a point.
Okay.
Definitely. And ended up having an affair with this girl. It lasted 4 months. Like it felt like a full-blown relationship. Looking back at it now, I can't even believe the things that I was getting away with at that time. Like on the weekends, I was literally going over to this girl's house from afternoon to late at night, telling my wife whatever. There's no way I can do that now. We didn't have any kids at this point in time. This is 2013. Our firstborn, who just turned 8 last Friday, he was born in 2014 after we got through this period.
Okay.
And in January of 2014, the girl sent me an email saying, hey, I'll pay for your divorce if this is really what you want to do. Because
she was gangster with it, huh?
Exactly.
Right.
So we even had those discussions. I was like, everything this girl was telling me, giving me from a physical standpoint, all that type of stuff too. I was like, this is what I want.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm like, maybe I do want a divorce and get out of this at a young age and not have to deal with it. And my wife found the email. By this time in January 2014, she was close to 100% recovered at that point. Now, the memory piece was still there. She still didn't remember getting married or anything like that.
Right.
But as far as like what we did and stuff like that, she can fully remember all that type of stuff by this point now. So she found the email, confronted me, denied it at first.
I'm about to say, did you tell the truth or did you like, with me?
We never tell the truth at first.
Right.
Denied it right away and then finally owned up to it. That was on a Friday night. So Saturday morning, she has me call the girl and confront her and let her know that things are over. The girl did not answer. Left the voicemail.
Thank God.
Sent a text message. I was praying she did not answer as well in my head. But that was one of the toughest periods that I've ever been through. Besides seeing your wife collapse and all this stuff.
Right.
Like knowing that you've been out there cheating on your wife and then keeping all those demons inside of you.
Right.
Finally having it released and being exposed. Not only
I was about to say,
her,
did you feel like a free man? I mean, I understand the part that is men. We're going to not tell the truth, right?
Right.
But it's a burden and relief off of you that you get caught, right? That's anything to when you living alive for a short period of time. When you get caught, you're like, man, I'm kind of glad I did get caught. Not like this, but I'm glad I got caught.
Right.
You felt that?
Yeah, absolutely. To a standpoint. Yes, you're nervous. You're scared about what's going to come next. Am I going to go through a divorce?
Right.
At first, that's all my wife was saying is, I'm done with you. I want a divorce. But on the other hand, I was like, I'm glad that it's all out in the open now. And we can start working on the process, on the next steps. And my mom played a big point at that time because her and my wife had a great relationship at that point in time. And she was helping her be like, hey, no, you got a really good man here. He's helped you overcome all this. He stayed with you through this period. And my mom gave her a different perspective that she may not have been wanting to hear or look at that point in time if it was only me saying that to her. So I think that helped and played a big part. Her aunt at that time, her mom at that time also played a big part in being a cheerleader for me and letting them know how good of a man I was outside of what I just done to her on that standpoint and everything else that we've been through. So from that point, my wife asked me, do you want to make this marriage work? And I said, yes. And she said, all right, well then you're going to have to do everything possible to prove to me that you want this. And I was like, done deal. Not worried about it. So she called the church. At that point in time, we were going through Colleyville Covenant Church over in Colleyville, about 30 minutes away. And she called and asked them, do they have any marriage counselors to help save our marriage? So they put us in touch with, is now today, my biggest mentor and life coach, a couple named Thomas and Tasha Gibson.
Okay.
They still live in the area. And we sat down, told them the whole story, what we've been through and the current situation, what had just happened. And we started walking out the process with them. And then the following month, in April, May time of 2014, she found out she was pregnant with our firstborn. That was a whole nother thing at that point in time because doctors were saying she would be high risk because of the epilepsy with the seizures and everything. So to prove to her that I was willing to do everything possible, we went through the marriage counseling sessions. Then Thomas, our marriage counselor, the husband, he told me there's a program through the church called Camp Freedom. I went through that. That's a program for men to really become free on any demons that they've gone through. It's 4 days long. You run towards God 24/7 throughout that 4 days. And then they also had another program within the church called Celebrate Recovery.
Okay.
Now it's kind of like an AA program.
I was just about to say, celebrating anything sounds like an AA meeting, man.
It's kind of like an AA
Right.
program, but within the church environment, and it's
Okay.
for people that have gone through any type of situation in
Okay.
life, not this drugs and alcohol and stuff
Right.
like that. So that was a long program. That was about 15 months,
Okay.
and we went through that together as husband and wife. But you split off in the men's groups, female groups,
Right.
to keep everything separated in that. So that was every single week on a Tuesday. So went through that process, went through the Camp Freedom process. When she found out she was pregnant, we ended up getting rebaptized that year. We had both been baptized, but it was at an early age to where we
Right.
didn't understand it at that point in time. So we wanted a clean slate, got baptized together. So 2014 felt like 2 or 3 years wrapped up
Wrapped
in
in
one.
one.
That's how long that year felt. But I also experienced my biggest growth.
Okay.
That's when I really started leaning towards God, running towards God. I got saved on August 10th of 2014 at Camp Freedom. On the last day, wrote my name on a stake, planted in the ground, and dedicated my life to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
And you've been pumping since then, huh?
Been pumping since then.
Hey, I want to ask you a question, man. Most men that do step outside the marriage, they lose their manhood. I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. I see a lot of men trying to please the grace of their wife. They're trying to get in the good grace of their wife,
Yeah.
and they give up their manhood card. What I mean by manhood card, I see they do whatever they can, and some things don't even make sense, right? They just like messed up, and they just allowed a woman to run the ship. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And what kept you structurally able to keep your manhood card, right? Where you be like, listen, baby, I might have messed up, but just because you say we going that direction, we're going to crash and burn. I'm not going that direction. And this ain't to take away anything that women can't do, right? But I'm going to talk about my household, right? I'm the head of the house, right? So if there's a big decision that's got to be made, I will discuss it with my wife. But if it's something that needs to be made, it falls on me as the head.
Right.
But a lot of men, when they have that issue, they what you want to do? It's up to you, baby. You know what I'm saying? Because they messed up. What kept that structure in your household strong to where you was like, I messed up, but that don't change my manhood. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I would say the accountability partners that I had in my life during that time.
Okay.
With going through those programs, those small men's groups,
Right.
you really get ingrained around a lot of powerful men, a lot of spiritual men, and a lot of men with a lot of wisdom. Even a lot of the same men that I'm on Zoom calls today that you got to experience.
Right. Right.
Those same men in my life during that time to help me through it. So having them around me, that encouragement, and to keep a spiritually fed mind during that time,
Right.
let me know, all right, I will be okay. I will make it through this. And I persevered through stuff before, and I don't have the mentality of giving up. So, yeah, it was a tough time, but continue being the man of the household. What I've been through to help my wife get through the situation of the collapsing, the memory loss, the speech therapy, the physical therapy, and letting her know we got things structured out. This is what we're going to do. And then continue to stay in my word. I always say, get in the word until it gets into you.
Right. I like that.
And staying prayed up every day, reading every day, the Bible every single day,
Right.
getting fed spiritually will allow you to turn around, because men have to be the head of the household, but we have to go to God first.
Right.
He's our source, and then we turn around and give that to our family.
Right. I
So-
like the analogy my man just used, that God is the head of the house. So I always use God is in the skybox. I'm the coach, and I send the plays out.
Yeah.
Right. So it's an order into that. You know what I'm saying? And I like what you just shared with the marriage thing, man. And something I want you to kind of give people some advice, man, on. if somebody's out there, man, willing to give up, they got a wife that's dealing with health issues or a husband dealing with health issues, man, what would you tell them the key thing to keep going? Because some people are at the end of their wits on, taking care of a spouse, and then if the marriage had any issues before the wife got, I'm gonna tell you one thing, and this is probably gonna sound real gangster and rude to people, right? But in my beginning of my marriage, it was so rough. I said one of us got to go.
Right.
I said she got to go, God, because I wasn't gonna get divorced, but she had to die. That's the way I felt. Sounds gangster, right? I mean, honestly, bro, that's how bad I felt like this marriage is horrible.
Yeah.
Like, man, she got to go. But at the time, I was young, I was immature, but that's what I wanted to see done because I wanted to be the person like you. I wanted to go spread my royal oats. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to meet the work wife. You know what I'm saying? I currently had a work wife.
Yeah. Never
cheated with her physically, but I would rather have a conversation with her at work than come home and have a conversation with my wife at work. I mean, at home. You know what I'm saying? So something you can get people to be encouraged and keep moving forward, man. Something you can just share with people, man. That's simple and practical. That they can just do, man, just to keep their life moving.
Well, simple and practical to me is praying on a daily basis, reading your word on a daily basis, and keeping a team around you. You got to have that network. We cannot go through life alone, as much as a lot of people like to and say, I'm a loner or I'm an introvert. I just keep to myself. I'm an introvert too,
right?
But I'm more of an extrovert now because of the team that I have in place and because of my testimony. And you got to be willing to share what's on your mind. A lot of us hold stuff inside because we think we're the only person in life going through that situation. We think everyone around us is going to judge us.
Right.
And yes, you're going to have people judge you, but God is the one that judges us at the end of the day. And the more that you can release out into the atmosphere,
right,
the less the devil can hold against you at the end of the day.
Okay.
So picking up the phone and calling an accountability brother or accountability sister if you're a female going through the situation, meeting up for someone at lunch, dinner. I just had lunch with a guy yesterday that's going through a similar situation from the cheating aspect,
right,
because I gave my testimony, so we met, was able to give some advice and be able to have dialogue. So if you don't have that in place, I don't think any of us are going to succeed in what we need to or what we want to in life. Because a lot of us want to do what we want to do,
right,
instead of what He wants us to do. He, meaning God, our source.
I like that, bro. Those things that he just shared, the accountability piece, putting Jesus at the forefront of your life, right? We always, it sounds like a cliche to people, right? But that's sometimes the strongest foundation and thing that you can have to hold you together. Just definitely for me, you know what I'm saying? But I want to talk a little bit about, before we go off air, what gave you the idea for Unwavering Clothing? What was the mindset behind that?
Yeah. So the motto behind it is the power to overcome.
Okay.
Power to overcome anything that you've been through in life. So for me and my wife, we're co-owners with the clothing company. We started it back in 2020, and it really has to do revolving around our story. Her collapsing, her having epilepsy, her not remembering how to walk, talk, losing her memory. She also went through a car accident back in 2016 after making this recovery that triggered a lot of those epilepsy symptoms after that, to where she had 2 seizures during the second pregnancy in 2017 for our 4-year-old. And to this day, he's not even speaking, and he'll be 5 next Friday. So we have to get an evaluation done. We actually have a schedule later this month to see if he's autistic.
Okay.
So anything that you may be going through in life, you have the power to overcome with God. It talks about in the Bible having unwavering faith about 5 different times throughout the Bible. So when you hear the words unwavering, you're going to think of us at the end of the day. Okay. And it's not just our story, it's really anyone's story that's going through any single thing in life that may be detrimental in any type of way. Small, medium, big, it does not matter. We all go through stuff in life. Do you have the power to overcome? Yes. God will get you through it, and you have to be unwavering at the end of the day to get through it. Standing firm.
I like that, man. Well, I had Marcus come out today, and I had him come out and share his testimony. I thank him for sharing this couch over here. I thank you guys for taking the time and listening to this man's story. Whether you're dealing with a problem or you may know somebody dealing with a problem, reach out to them, because sometimes people don't share their problems that they're dealing with because they think they can handle them alone. So if you know somebody, send them a text, send them a call, tell them, hey man, I was thinking about you, or can I pray for you, or those type of things, man, because these issues are real, you know, that people go through. So I want to thank you for tuning in to Elite Men Podcast. Please reach us at elitemenpodcast23@gmail.com. If you got any questions, we can be reached there. And if you don't have a men's ministry or a men's group, please reach out to me and I'll find some way to get you connected to one, or you can connect to ours, which is on Tuesdays. Marcus hold one on Thursdays, and what's the other day?
So we got Zoom calls on Monday morning at 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, Monday nights at 7 p.m., and then also Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time.
So please reach out. Next topic I'm gonna have a gentleman named. He's incredible. His name is Anthony. He's incredible with just politics. We're gonna talk about politics. We're gonna talk about what keeps the black culture down. We're gonna talk about what rises the black culture. We're gonna talk about why are men so fearful and express the way that they feel in today's time. Because as a Christian men, we are being put into corners and we can't express our emotions. Or if we're different, we call it Uncle Tom. We're going to dive into those things, so please tune in to the next episode.